When we talk about portfolio decisions, we need to look at it as there is something called we need to look at the products. Different stages are designed like a funnel. The decisions come as your one side is your what identifying the customer needs or what the customer is looking for, and then what is technologically feasible in terms of or cost and technology wise what is feasible to provide those customer needs. Okay. That's your merge, you make that customer needs and feasibility, and that leads to product choices. When it comes to product related decisions, what we are looking for is it comes as a funnel. At the upfront stages, you need to have more options. As you go down, you will narrow down the options. The first stage is your concept generation. You need to have here you need to have more choices, more options. Let's say I have 10 options in the concept generation stage. So then I will discuss which concepts you will select. All the concepts may not be viable, all may not need, again go back to the questions we discussed about the narrative test and the cost related test in terms of what the customer needs or whether it is who, what, why, how the customer will pay and so on, and evaluate whether you can make it at a certain cost and have certain profit objective and so on. That will further filter to concept selection. Let's say from 10 choices or 10 options at the generation stage, you come to 8 selection concept selected. Then you come to your product design. You design in terms of which concepts you will work on. So then that will lead to designing of the product. What is feasible, what is let's say your in terms of your basic raw material or availability and supplier network, dealer network and so on. When you look at evaluate all your choices, you identify what are feasible. That leads to your product design. Let's say from 8, now you come down to 6 or 7 in terms of products in terms of at a design stage. Then what is feasible to develop? In develop stage we will come to 1 or 2 designs will drop and during your development stage. Post your development, we come to a prototype testing. The product is designed, product is developed, and you test it in terms of your base version or the beta version. We test it, we see the user feedback and so on. We even make certain changes if it is required, and then you come with the product release. So each stage typically we start like a funnel, and each stage the number of choices, the number of options will keep on reducing. You can't, towards the end you will have limited number of choices. What happens if you start, the funnel is too wide, if you the starting point, you will spend lot of energy on irrelevant choices which are not relevant and so on. If it is too narrow, you will be limited with your choices. You are not able to make decisions in terms of, you don't have many options here. So that funnel should be in terms of your logical, in terms of appropriate in different businesses. It cannot be too narrow or too broad. You need to see the ratio appropriately. Let's say you create 1000 concepts, then evaluating those concepts will take time. So there has to be, again, everything as we said starts with a clarifying in terms of your mission statement or your project charter. If you have clarity at that point, you know for what customers we are doing, then you will have relevant concepts. So from that relevant concepts, then filter down depending on which are not feasible, you drop that. So essentially what happens in the funnel, each stage is a stage gate, what we call the gate system, right? Let's say your idea comes, then it passes to your gate 1, which is your initial screening. Okay, some of those random ideas will drop at the initial screening. You don't need to take it to your board or your team in terms of assessments and so on. Next stage is your typically your preliminary assessment or the concept when it comes to your concept selection. After that you have second gate. The second gate, then you have, after it passes through the second gate, you will have a detailed investigation. Understand the business model, business case, problem statement and so on, customer need at this point. You need and then your decision is on the business model or business case. That is your next gate. Each decision making, you evaluate the options and have the gate is basically a go no go choice. You drop the idea or go ahead with the idea to the next stage. Next gate is about your leads to your development. Then you have post development, you review the product, you review the process, then you, after it passes the review, post development review, you take it for a testing or validation as a process. That is your next stage. Then again your next gate comes. So, this is your pre commercialization. The after testing you evaluate whether it is ready for commercial implementation and so on, right. You go through the again full analysis, user review and so on, then your production stage comes. So, this is your basic, each is a funnel, each funnel, at the end of each funnel it passes through a gate, to the stage gate, then it each step it kind of refines and number of ideas or number of concepts reduced, and eventually you come up with a concrete one or two concrete products in this case. That is your basic idea of a staged model and so on. We discussed so far in this module in terms of your product selection process, what are the product development process and so on, and basic portfolio decisions lead to your funnel approach. The funnel approach refines and clarifies in terms of what product to come up and so on.